One of the most devastating terrorist attacks linked to an airline was the 1985 bombing of Air India Flight 182, also known as the Kanishka bombings, carried out by the Khalistani terrorists. The attack claimed the lives of over 300 people, most of them Canadian citizens. Namaskar, I am Suruchi Das and you're watching Ritam News. It's a widely known fact that the Canadian government ignored repeated intelligence alerts from India about the impending terrorist attack on Air India. However, what is not as well known is the shocking revelation that Canada's intelligence agency, CSIS, had a mole embedded within the terrorist group behind the bombing. In a report released in May 2003 by the CBC, Canada's public broadcaster, based on the documents released by the RCMP, it was revealed that CSIS had an informant in the plot but pulled him out just before the bombings. The mole, identified as Surjan Singh Gill, was removed at the last minute by his Canadian intelligence handlers to avoid implicating him in the attack. According to RCMP documents, Gill was smuggled out of the country and relocated to the UK, where he disappeared and has not been seen since. This revelation implies that Canadian intelligence, and by extension the Canadian government, was aware of the bombing plot but either chose not to intervene or deliberately stepped aside, allowing the tragic incident to unfold. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police documents further suggests that the Canadian government made a covert decision to protect this sensitive source at the cost of 329 lives, including 268 Canadians who perished in the Kanishka bombings. Even more disturbing, the same CBC report revealed that Canadian intelligence destroyed hundreds of wiretaps related to the Air India investigation. It was later admitted in court that this was not just negligence. It could have been an intentional effort to cover up Canadian involvement in one of the deadliest terrorist attacks in the aviation history. This destruction of evidence fueled a national campaign to absolve the Canadian government of its complicity with pro-Khalistan terrorists. In 2010, the John C. Major inquiry attributed the disaster to a cascading series of errors by Canadian ministries, the RCMP and CSIS. The inquiry concluded it was not deliberate action but negligence, turning a blind eye rather than pulling the trigger. Now, decades later, pro-Sikh separatist elements within Canadian politics have been emboldened. Since Justin Trudeau's government entered into a diplomatic spat with India last year, pro-Sikh separatist voices within his Liberal Party have called for a re-investigation into the Kanishka bombings, attempting to shift the blame away from those responsible. This resurfaced case raises profound questions about the legacy of Canada's involvement with these terrorist groups and the Canadian government's willingness to protect those responsible for the bloodshed of hundreds of innocent lives. Jai Hind.